Hello and welcome back to Man Cave Hobbies. So today's video is the plastic fantastic DJI FPV drone. Yeah, why do I own this thing? I mean, I made a lot of fun of this thing here about 10 months ago. Well, actually about 11 months ago now. So why would I own this thing? I mean, I've been flying since 1979. I've flown everything, helicopters, gas-powered and electric. Been flying FPV drones since 2014. Been flying FPV since 2010. I built my own camera drones, my own gimbals, the whole nine yards. So why would I own something that's made for a beginner? Well, it's really simple, guys. I bought a jet boat, okay? And this is where we take the jet boat. It's 26 miles of canyon like this with cliffs, the whole nine yards, and you can fly a drone in here. The problem is not flying one of my regular drones like this, okay? The problem is landing a drone like this. And on the back of the boat, it's shaped like this. And there's a pad back there for, you know, when you want to do wakeboarding or water skiing or whatever not, you slide over the pad. That pad's $650. And ask me how I know. So this is out. I've tried this just in the yard without the boat doing this. And you can, you know, the props are just too low to that pad. And it comes down, and it also wants to slide off the back of the boat too, because the back of the boat is arched with a pad on it. So if you just get this a little bit wrong, you just tore up that pad. It's over with. If it starts sliding off the back of the boat, good luck catching it. And trying to cut the power and catch it in your hands, not really a viable option. Okay, so this is out. This is out. Also, this here is a diatone Taycan or Taycan. And I call it the Billy D60. That's who gave me the frame from RC Groups. And I made this for my wife. It's got iNav in it. It does everything that the Plastic Fantastic does. It's got stabilize mode, return to home, the whole nine yards. She's never flown a drone or even touched a controller in her life, and she was able to fly this thing. This thing's great. It's absolutely stable. It's made for cinematics because it's a CineWhoop. And you can put a GoPro right on top of it or whatever you choose. This is absolutely awesome. And it's built like a bridge. It's surrounded by foam. It's perfect, right? Except it isn't. It doesn't dive well. When you're coming down, it wants to wash out. I try to tune it out on iNav. It doesn't work. It's just not super stable. Not only that, this thing uses a hell of a lot of power to get back to where I want to be. So by the time I get back there, I'm having to return home already. And there's a couple of times where I did use the return to home and it wanted to return to Mars. So yeah, that's out. It also kind of slides off the back of that pad as well. So let's get back to the beginner drone. That's where I think this product has been absolutely misunderstood. People, you know, like myself, were laughing at it. This is made out of plastic. It's got these cheap little proprietary propellers on it. I mean, come on, man. You wreck this thing, you're coming home in a bag of parts. Not all the time, but a lot of the times. It only takes one wreck before you're looking at a couple $100 repair, perhaps, right? Whereas a regular drone, if I break an arm on this thing, it's like $10 and it takes 10 minutes out in the field. This thing is built like a laptop inside here, and just to remove this one arm yourself, you got to take this whole damn thing apart. This is not made for true FPV freestyle. I don't care what Rotor Riot's doing. I don't care what... Yeah, can you do it? Sure. But I can also take my pickup truck and enter it into a race car race. I don't think I'm going to do very well, and it's really not made for that, right? So, but as a beginner drone, for $1,000, that's what they are now, $1,000. And I don't know if it's because they're phasing them out or it's just a typical price structure for DJI. They usually do this after a product's been released after about a year. But you're not going to find a better beginner drone package, period. Period. I guarantee you, whoever you are, you're going to be able to go from not knowing anything to actually be able to fly this in manual mode, up high, like I'm going to do in the flight video. I would not get down low with this. I would not try to do the things you would do with a typical FPV freestyle or racing drone. It's not made for that. But up high, you can learn tricks. You can get that muscle memory. It also has an app, so that, you know, like a simulator, so you can learn that muscle memory. Like when you first learned how to drive a car, you weren't very good at it. It was kind of scary. But then after a while, you don't even think about it anymore. Your body just does it. And when you get to that stage, you can get rid of this, or just park it on the shelf somewhere. Buy this with a Vista built into it, and then just link it up to your helmet, which is one of the most expensive things in FPV, is the helmet. So you already part way there, and then you can just get a cheap $100 or $69 controller, and you're good to go. You're good to go. It doesn't mean when you get to that stage, guys, these things have stabilized mode in them. They have horizon mode in them. They take off just like this does in regular normal mode. And then you can click over into rate mode or manual mode, if you want to call it that, where you have to control it more. But you can start out in those other modes and fly just fine, especially if you already know how to fly something this heavy that doesn't really fly in the wind. I'm going to show you that in my flight videos. If you can get in the manual mode where you're not thinking about it, you got the muscle memory, you're definitely ready for this. You're definitely ready for this. And then that way you can take it that next step, where you're not worried about wrecking, where you're locking up and you're thinking about what you're doing because you're so worried about wrecking. Don't worry about wrecking these things. They're made to wreck. They're made for it. You're not having to worry about sending them back to DJI. You can actually do it yourself with a few tools and perhaps maybe a soldering iron, but mostly it's just tools. So let's get this thing on the bench. Let's talk about this thing a little bit more. You do get a lot for $1,000. I mean, you get a really nice camera. It's got stabilized in it. It does have a gimbal on it. You do have a simulator. It's got a great controller. It comes with one battery and a power pack. They call it a charger, but it's actually just a power pack. I'm also going to talk about a lot of the accessories that I bought for this that I think you might want to look at as time goes on. But honestly, let's just get this thing on the bench and let's just break it down and I'll talk about it a little further. Now, as you can see, I have a lot of accessories here on this one. I have the skins just for fun, plus it's a little easier to find if you do crash it in the bushes. I also have a guard up front here for the gimbal, plus it comes with a nice little carrying, convenient carrying handle. I like that. So I'm going to go over some of these accessories. Some of these accessories are great. Some of these accessories that I purchased are just absolute garbage. So maybe you save a little bit of money that way. So this is the drone. Some of the benefits of the drone, like I said, is because it is raised up. It does have rubberized feet, so it can't slide around. That's really nice. However, that's also kind of its crux. And what I mean by that is that when you wreck an FPV drone, typically it's like this. You come in, you land wrong, boom. And with having this material underneath there, this landing gear, it's going to act as a torque. It's going to want to torque this way and break at the root of the arm. And that's typically what happens when you see pictures posted or video posted. The arm breaks right here at the root. Now, that wouldn't be so bad. I mean, honestly, it really wouldn't, except that DJI, in their infinite wisdom of a $15 billion company, that's their estimated worth, also made it extraordinarily difficult to switch out an arm. And that's something that I really don't understand. I mean, not just for as a customer, but also the care program where they fix the drone for you. That requires a great deal of labor for them if you send this thing in. So I don't really understand the logic behind that. I understand the logic of what they did here, but I don't understand the logic of making it so difficult to just replace one arm. A typical FPV drone is very, very simple. You have 3 screws. 3 screws, 4 screws here for your motor. You pop your motor down. You take these, you pop this arm off. $10 arm goes back in there. And within 10 minutes, you're up and flying. That's typically how it's done. And this, of course, is carbon fiber. It's made to take an absolute beating. Here's another one right here. Same thing. You have a few screws right here. This one has this screw right here. And that's pretty much about it. It's just these screws right here. And the way it interlocks is it just pops out an arm. And you only have 3 screws on here. And that's it. And this is really, really thick carbon fiber. So it's very simple to change out an arm on a typical FPV drone because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. These things are made. These things wreck a lot. This not so much. You got to take this. This thing's built like a laptop, so it's got so much electronics jammed in here that you have to remove all of this just to get this, and it makes absolutely no sense. They could have easily made an interlock here, a couple of screws and some plugs, pull this arm off, pop the new motor off, or pop the motor off, and boom, there you go. You got an arm replacement. The other thing that doesn't make any sense is making your battery so that it's part of the landing gear. And a lot of people have been breaking their battery, typically right in here. Let me show you that. Well, actually, I'll just show you on this one. Typically, they break right here. And the reason why is because this here is not real plastic. This is kind of like a plastic black tape over the actual LiPo bags themselves. So inside here, let me show you what it looks like. It kind of looks like this inside here. And so they just took this black stuff and they just stuck it on the top here, and that's it, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, except for that because this is used as a landing gear, it breaks right here and right down here on the casing. Not back here, but here. And that's a problem because this is a $150 battery. So why would you want to use your battery as a piece of landing gear? It makes no sense. So one of the accessories that people are buying is something like this. And this just fits right over the top. It actually sticks really good while it's flying, even at high speed. And so therefore you got extra protection here. So you're not toasting a $150 battery if you happen to land very, very hard. So that's just a couple of little things there that just do not make any sense. Now, it's fine if you're flying around in regular mode or sport mode, but once you start getting into manual mode, that's when things kind of go awry. Because number one, you're not used to manual mode, and a lot of guys are trying to fly this as you would fly something that's made to take a beating. And this is not made to take a beating at all. In fact, in my flight video, I will show you how I fly it in manual mode and what I think about it in manual mode and how you should fly it in manual mode. Do not get this thing close to trees and obstacles and things of that nature unless you have a lot of money where you don't mind sending this off to DJI every week and having them fix it. The other thing that's kind of interesting are these props. Now, what's interesting about these props is just number one, how thin they are. They're not standard stiffness, which, you know, I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they made it proprietary where they pop on and pop off. It doesn't really make any sense to me at all. I can't see any real positive benefit of these props, the shape that they are, the material they're made out of, and the system that they use to put them on and off, when this is proven science. I mean, this is absolute proven. And when these things bend back, you can just, you know, when they bend, you can just bend them back, and they're hugely efficient. Where these ones here tend to have a lot of flexibility. And the problem with that is, this is something I was surprised by. This thing does not handle wind very well. It's actually shocking to me. I mean, I had a 10-mile-an-hour wind. I thought maybe it was too much wind up top, maybe where I couldn't measure the wind. But I took this one out, and it handled the wind just fine. It wasn't buffering in the wind every which direction and whatever not. And that has to deal with these props being so damn flexible. I mean, this is already a heavy quadcopter, a very heavy quadcopter. And so when you have flexible props like this, yeah, they're not going to perform as well as standard FPV props. So, and they're expensive. I mean, they're very, very expensive for what they are. These are dirt cheap per pack, and these are really expensive. So that's something that, you know, a lot of guys, they bought the adapters to adapt the propellers to regular FPV propellers, and I would highly recommend that. I truly, honestly would. The performance is going to be better because this doesn't fly very well. It doesn't fly very well, especially in manual mode. The best way to describe it in manual mode is it flies like a quadcopter, like an ill-tuned quadcopter of 5 years ago. It has a lot of prop wash. It has a lot of yaw wash. Really, I was actually pretty shocked by how badly this thing actually flies compared to a standard quadcopter of today. So that's, that's just something right there. One of the other accessories that that I did get for this, because even though it did come with a battery charger for 3 batteries and whatever not, the so-called battery charger is not an actual charger. These chargers that come are basically just a power pack. This is what you get. It doesn't actually charge anything. The charging is happening inside the battery. So all this thing has to do is just provide power. Now your stock one, what it does is it takes a turn. It starts with one and then it flashes to another and then to another and then this one and this one and so on and so forth. So it kind of takes a while. I mean, it's safe, but it takes a while. This here charges all 3 of them at the same time. And it's not a charger, it's just a power supply. So all it does is supply enough amperage. The output is 25.2 volts at 6 amps. So 2 amps, 4 amps, 6 amps. Each battery gets 2 amps. Now these are only 2 amp batteries. So therefore it takes an hour to charge all 3. I would highly recommend this, especially for the price. I think I paid $48 for it on Amazon. It's not a bad deal. It's got a built-in fan. It's pretty heavy. It's still compact enough to throw in a case or a backpack, but this is one of the recommendations that I have for an accessory right here. It'll make it a lot easier for you to charge. Let's talk about the helmet. So the FPV helmet is a good helmet. If you want to, it's actually more of a helmet than a goggle. And what I mean by that is that typically an FPV goggle is shaped differently. Let me show you here with my standard set of goggles. These are the HDO2s by Fat Shark. And as you can see, they're much more compact. This has got a lot better of an angle for the forehead and the head all the way around. And they're just lighter, just way more compact. This is a typical FPV goggle. And this is actually one of the best ones on the market, arguably. This here, as you can see, the design of it is not really designed for any kind of human head. I don't know how they shaped it or why they shaped it the way they did. I think they tried to make it so it looks smaller as opposed to longer, so that it looks more like a goggle than an actual headset. It's not bad. It's just it doesn't fit as well as a regular FPV goggle. And so one of the ways to solve that is by having different foam. Now the one thing I was shocked by was that with the DJI FPV Drone Combo is the lack of adjustability on the screen. When you're dealing with the Cadex or the air units on regular FPV quadcopters, you can actually adjust the screen up and down and shrink it and so on and so forth. With the FPV Drone Combo, you can only shrink it. You cannot move the screen up and down, and I don't understand why. Because I don't know if it's my firmware. I don't think so. I think I had the latest firmware when I checked it. But yeah, you can only size down the screen. You cannot move the image up and down. And that becomes a real problem because not one size fits all. This is the #1 crux of these goggles. You have an IPD adjustment this way and this way for your eyes, but you don't have them where each individual can go in and out like regular FPV goggles. These dials right here make it so that you have a strong eye, because every person has a strong eye, every person has a weak eye, and you can tune your eyes individually with standard FPV goggles. Where this one, all you have is just the adjustment this way, and that's it. So that's kind of shocking. One way to get around the inadequacy of the actual design of the goggle was to go with a fat strap as opposed to the jock strap that goes over the top of your head. This really, really helps. I highly recommend a fat strap. And also this particular foam. So I've tried the standard DJI FPV foam on this, and this $17 piece of foam is absolute garbage. And what I mean by that is what happens is when you have an optics engine in a set of goggles, it is reliant on the person, where the person's eye is in relation to the actual screens themselves.
And the farther you get away from these screens, they become more blurry. And with a thick foam like this, or even the standard crappy rubberized foam that's, I don't know what the hell they were thinking with this, that becomes a real problem. You have light leakage around here, and especially around the nose area, so you get light in there. And then with a thicker foam, it pulls you away from your forehead, and it ends up blurry. And it doesn't sit on the face correctly. With this foam here, I found it actually solves that problem. This is the best foam I've been able to find. This is on Amazon. And as you can see, it's quite a bit larger. It's quite a bit larger all the way around the head. It's made of a velour material. It's so comfortable on the head. It's absolutely wonderful on the head. It doesn't make your head sweat. It's beautiful. However, there is a problem. The problem is that right here on the nose piece, it actually goes all the way across, where this part right here was fitting underneath my nose. It's the strangest thing. I had to cut it, and then I had to use double-sided sticky tape to push these ends back up inside here, and I put a little piece of foam here to block out the light leakage. By doing that, this became the perfect foam. It doesn't shove my forehead away from the lenses. So now the lenses now the screens are in perfect focus. It has no light leakage whatsoever. It's completely comfortable, especially on the cheeks here where the weight kind of rests on your head. This is a recommendation of mine. I highly recommend this foam here. I'll put a link down below, a non-affiliated link. I don't make any money on this channel, guys. That's not what this channel is about. It's an extension of my hobby. So I had to cut it right here. 2 pieces of double-sided sticky tape, push these up there and just hold them right there, and it became absolutely perfect. It's the best foam I've been able to find, and it completely fixed the blurry problem that I was having with these. And they sit on my head correctly as well. So those are 2 things that I would recommend, is the fat strap and this foam here. The FPV drone kit also comes with this little battery. Now, this doesn't seem like a very adequate battery, but it actually is. I mean, I have no problem with the 3 batteries that I have. And if I have to charge these up, I just charge this up. It seems to be extremely adequate. It handles the cold just fine, which I was surprised by. I've flown this out in 10-degree weather, and it flew just fine. It didn't kill the battery at all. So I don't have a problem with this, and these are pretty inexpensive. I mean, they're like 20-some bucks a piece, and so I just picked up a couple of them. It's not a big deal. So I don't mind the battery pack for the helmet itself. And with the fat strap, you can just fit the battery right here, right inside here, and then you can just run your cable straight to your thing. And so it's all on your head. It's really, really nice. The controller, I didn't have to do really any modifications whatsoever. It's not a bad controller. I had to kind of fix I do a lot of thumbing with this because I just think that it's just a little too much. It's short sticks to try to do any kind of hybrid or any kind of true pinch. So I just thumb with this radio anyway. It's not a bad radio. I don't see a problem with it. It's got a good battery in it. It's actually pretty nice. The one thing I don't really care for is how far these switches up. I have 3X size hands, and these switches are kind of like way up here. I don't quite understand it. They're kind of weird. I don't know why they just didn't use standard switches like you'd find on most game style controllers. I don't really understand it. But anyway, they used rockers. They're just kind of out of the way. So you have to think about what you're doing while you're trying to fly. That's typically a no-no with an FPV drone, but whatever. It's not a bad controller. It fits good. It's heavy in the hands. I like it. It's a little on the slippery side. They didn't use any real, like this isn't real tacky or anything. Unlike the material that's on here, which is rubberized. And I got another radio just kind of like this that's rubberized as well. This is more slippery in the hands. So that's one thing I didn't like, is how slippery it was. But overall, it's a damn good controller. These batteries are 150 bucks a piece. And the reason why is because you're not going to find probably a better battery out there. They use strict controls. It has a built-in charger, a built-in conditioner. The one thing I don't understand about this drone package is the fact that when you're done at the end of the day, you can see these are fully charged. Typically in our hobby, we do not leave our batteries fully charged for more than 24 hours. So if you charge up a bunch of batteries, the weather changes, your schedule changes, you can't go fly, we take these batteries back and then we actually discharge these to a storage charge of 3.8 volts. There is no way of doing that with these batteries. I guess they automatically do it after a week. That's not good. That's just not standard practice. It's not good. And the reason why is because LiPo batteries in these bags right here, there's 6 of them on this. This is a 6S pack. You have an anoid and a cathode. And so what happens is there's a gel between the two. And when you leave them charged up like that, they create like little crystals. I'll put the name right here. And it can cause internal resistance because it can actually poke through, not the bags themselves, but the, what is it, anoid or the cathode? I don't know. Anyway, it causes problems. That's why we discharge these down to 3.8. You can't do that with this. I was really shocked by that. I thought maybe there would be a button on here or something on here that's, you hit a button and it just discharges the batteries, but it doesn't do it. That's kind of shocking. The other thing I would highly recommend is a landing pad. This one came with a landing pad when I purchased it. This is made by this company here. And what's nice about a landing pad, of course, is you can keep it out of the grass and whatever not. Also, too, this little pad right here, I like this because, you know, it does protect the screens. Especially if you accidentally tip it up in the sunlight, you pretty much killed it. So I like this because it fits right in there and it protects that from direct sunlight and dust and whatever not. It's not a nice little piece. It's soft right here, so it's not going to scratch up your screens. But this is nice because this has happened before with other FPV goggles where I lay them down and then next thing you know they're like this and the sun comes in and just completely destroys them. I've had it happen to me twice. So this is a nice little thing. You can get this on Amazon as well. So that is nice. What are some of the other accessories that I have? Oh, this piece of garbage. So I bought this thinking that you could put this on the gimbal and it would protect the gimbal. It would also protect all the lenses underneath here and you can fly with it. No. This thing here will smear. It looks like absolute hammered hell when you're flying. It's horrible. And not only that, it doesn't quite fit on there properly. So therefore it just wants to fall off in flight. So the only time I would recommend this little floppy doodle here that's supposed to go over the top of this and yada 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 is for storing it in your case or if you lose the standard cover here. What I do like about this is it does protect all of this down here. That is kind of nice, but you can't fly with it. It's garbage. So that's it, guys. That's pretty much the drone, the helmet, some of the pros and the cons. And some of the accessories that I purchased with this. So let's get out there and let's get flying.
Okay, so here we are. It is 5-mile-an-hour winds, 10-mile-an-hour gusts, 49 degrees outside. Not what I would consider a windy day. Actually, it would be considered a pretty typical day where I live. So, as you can see, this is the helmet recording. Now, you don't see helmet recording very often when it comes to the DJI FPV Plastic Fantastic Combo because most of the people out there putting video, well, they're wanting to sell you something. That's why there's an affiliated link down below. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just telling you my experience with this thing. As you can clearly see, it does not handle wind worth a damn. It really doesn't. I will show you the camera recording, which smooths all this out. You know, your typical, what you typically see in most of these guys' videos. We're gonna go over here into manual mode, right about there. That was stabilized mode going out. But you can see it's just rocking back and forth and so on and so forth. Now the wind is coming from the south, so that would be right there, out of that direction. So those houses off to the right, that's where the wind's coming from. So here's your super stabilized camera recording, which you normally see in videos of guys saying, oh, this thing is better than anything else out there. You should buy one. Click on my link down below. And then here we go back to what you're actually going to see in the goggles. And it's pretty alarming. It's pretty alarming. I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, you know, we're 5 to 10 miles an hour around here for wind is pretty normal. And I felt this is kind of sketchy to fly, actually. This is in full manual mode here. Yeah, it just felt sketchy. You can see the wind is picking it up there on the left-hand side of the quadcopter. Now the right-hand side, you can see the horizon now, how crooked it is. I mean, for something that weighs 700 and some grams, wind really shouldn't affect this that much. I don't know if it's those really crappy thin propellers or what, but honestly, I have 3-inch drones. I have 2.5-inch bladed drones up here on the wall that can handle 5 to 10 miles an hour better than this. The quadcopter I took, my normal freestyle quadcopter I took out in this park, a flight before this, you didn't even notice the wind. It's shocking. I'll be honest with you. I know it's got a gimbal on it, and the gimbal you know, they're on a mount, and that's some of the jitteries you're seeing here and stuff, where our cameras are normally solidly mounted on our quadcopters, but it's not that, because when I'll show you the next video coming up. That's the first video. As soon as I took it out of the case, I just took it out and I flew it. And I never had a problem finding. There was no wind, and it flew great. So yeah, I don't know. Here's your creamy, stabilized recording that DJI would like for me to push to you, and try to make you think that that's the way it is inside the helmet. You can see the camera does a great job stabilizing all that crap. It really does. It's beautiful. I mean, it's great. But you still have to be able to fly it, right? And that canyon I'm going to take it in, it's got easily 5-10 mile an hour winds, so I don't know. We're back here to the shake inside the helmet. You know, on yaw turns and stuff, it's just so out of tune. It's just, I don't know. It feels like a quadcopter of 4 or 5 years ago that just had a bad tune. That's really what it feels like. Yeah, but you can flip and roll with it. I mean, if you're a beginner, so what? If you're a beginner, you're going to be in normal mode and stabilized mode. And by the time you get to this mode and stuff, just stay away from things. Just get up high there. Learn how to flip and roll and whatever not. So here's me coming in for a landing in manual mode. What a mistake that was. Once again, like I showed you on the bench, what happens when you go to land and how it flips forward, and that's usually how damage begins. Boom, there you are. And the thing would not shut down. I hit the pause start switch 2 times like you're supposed to. That thing just kept doing a dance upside down until finally the motor said overload and it shut down on its own. All 4 props were completely destroyed, and it scratched up the top and scratched up that little that gimbal protector as well. So this is the very first day that I got it. I took it out of the case. No wind whatsoever. This is the stabilized view, of course, the camera recording. But even in the goggles, it looked great. I mean, it absolutely looked great inside there. It did have some shakes on yaw, like right there would have some shakes and stuff like that in the goggle view. But overall, it wasn't that bad. I mean, I felt pretty confident with this thing. I was actually really surprised on how agile it was. And yeah, I was kind of actually impressed with it, considering what it is. Until you just seen with all that wind. I mean, I noticed it. Excuse me. When I noticed it out here in the alley behind the house, when I took it up, it was a little bit windy. It was like probably about 5-10 miles an hour again, and just another typical day around here. And I noticed how much the wind really affected it. And then when I took it out to the park, that video I just had earlier here, it was just shocking. I was like, wow, what the hell's wrong with this thing? I mean, it weighs so damn much, there should be no way for wind to even affect this thing. I think it is the props. I hope it's the props. I'll try those. I'll try to get the prop adapters and regular props on this thing, but if it's not the props and it acts like that when I'm up in the canyon, then I'm just going to end up having to box it back up and sell it. But for a beginner, I still recommend it because you're just not going to find a better package for $1,000. And by the time you get up to that level where you're doing this kind of stuff I'm doing right here, it's time to move on anyway, right? It's time to move on to something that can actually crash. You can get a little closer, because the fun, guys, the fun in FPV freestyle is down low. It's close proximity. It's flying around those trees and in between those trees and so on and so forth. I don't feel confident doing that with this drone here. I just don't, because I don't feel like spending a bunch of money sending it back to DJI if I do pile it up. And you're going to pile up an FPV drone. It's just inevitable. In fact, if you're not crashing, you're not learning. You're not pushing yourself. That's the truth. I mean, if you're not crashing all of the time, you're really not pushing yourself. I mean, you look at these guys, these top pilots like Mr. Steele and Drew and so on and so forth. Trust me, those guys probably have trashed thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of frames and motors and components and so on and so forth. I mean, you know, for them to get as good as they are, they have broke a lot of things. Ask them. They've probably gone through, you know, for them to get a decent one-shot video, they probably are on their second, if not third quadcopter that day. So you're gonna wreck these things, and if you're not pushing yourself, well, you're just not gonna grow as fast. You're not gonna learn as fast. It's just the way it is. You know, this thing here, you crash it as much as you would normally crash an FPV drone, you're gonna be broke. You know, unless you make a lot of money and you got a lot of money just to throw at a hobby for no reason, you're going to end up busted. I mean, just broke. So you kind of get an idea of how it flies. It's pretty nimble when there's no wind. I'd still recommend it for a new person, but I'm really shocked how badly it's tuned for wind. All right, so that's the Plastic Fantastic DJI Drone Combo. Tell me what you think. Sorry the video was long. I did try to put chapters down below so you can just stop wherever, and in your next break you can just rewatch it or watch, start where you left off. I like it. It doesn't fly very well on the wind, as I've shown. I do not land it in manual mode. Obviously, it works for what I need it for, and that's really what it comes down to. Other than that, for an overall FPV drone, no. You want to graduate. Once you get to manual mode where you have that muscle memory, you want to go to something like this. And you can get this with the DJI built into it as far as the video quality with a Vista or an Air unit, and you can just use this. And then just pick yourself up a $69 controller and you're done. I mean, seriously, it's really comes down to that. Yeah, so it's not this. It doesn't fly like that either, as you've seen. It's different. I'll tell you that, but it's good enough. Okay, it's good enough for what I need it for. For a beginner, you're just not going to find anything better, guys. I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to sell you anything because there's no affiliated links here. I don't make any money on this channel. I'm just saying, for $1,000, you're not going to find a more complete beginner package and a more professional complete beginner package. So that's my video. Hopefully you liked it. Yeah. If you're a beginner, get this. Trust me, get this. Otherwise, you're just going to get frustrated and you're just going to quit the hobby. You know, this here, you have a better chance to sticking with the hobby and actually enjoying it. So that's my video for today. Thank you for watching. Have yourself a great evening, and we'll see you next time.